So I'm going to get us started. Um, Again, thank you for being here with us today. We're talking about unlocking AI's potential. And I think it's really timely considering a lot of us on the call are probably going to be at Dreamforce in a couple weeks. And we know that Dreamforce this year is all in on AI. So we wanted to get you started, lay some groundwork, and give you some perspective before we all went in there and drink from the Dreamforce fire hose of information. So with me today, if we flip to the next screen, I have two co-presenters with me. Actually, two of my favorite people to work with at Validity. They're product managers. They're awesome. They have great insight about data. I get to work with them on a daily basis, and you're going to hear three different accents coming at you today, but we like to keep it fun. So I've got Andrew Frages and Elliot Hogg with me. Hey guys, how's it going?
Good,
Very
thanks. How are
well.
you, Olivia?
Yeah. Very good. Well, thank you for being here. You guys aren't going to be hearing from me a lot today. It's going to be mostly Andrew and Elliot giving you the information that you need. But let's quickly go over what the agenda is so we can stick within these 35 minutes. All right. So first, we're going to talk about what is data quality. It wouldn't be a data insight episode if we didn't talk about data quality and just lay the land for what it is. But Andrew and Elliot have a nice perspective to give on this. It is a little bit different than how we've talked about it before. We're going to talk about how data quality impacts AI because it does pack a punch to AI and how to make the most of AI's potential. So, guys, take it away.
Thank you very much, Olivia. So as Olivia's just introduced there, I think it's a really, really great way for us to just level set as we begin to talk about data quality's relationship with AI is let's all get on the same page as to how we're going to talk about data quality and how we think about it at Validity, and particularly Andrew and I in our role as product managers, right? And there's a couple of key tenets that we think all come into this picture of data quality. The first one is one of the most obvious. It's accuracy, right? In order for something like AI to work and for data quality to work as a concept, right, the data we have needs to be accurate. It's a really key pillar. And jumping right into a very, very familiar and relatively dated predictive insights model that I'm sure resonates immediately with everybody here is Netflix, right? Or any other streaming service that has a recommended for you. It might even be a grocery store, for example. I mean, I'm sure everybody here, myself, Andrew, Olivia, when we go on Netflix, we spend longer looking for something to watch than we do actually watching something, right? And Netflix put a huge amount of effort in in and around their customer experience on this recommended for you feature. And literally before we came on this webinar, completely coincidentally, I had my daily email from Netflix with my recommendations to go and watch tonight. And that is a great experience. Should the data Netflix have on me be accurate, right? That powers the quality of the recommendations. And as a result, from a customer standpoint, my customer experience, I'm more likely to go to Netflix if I know there's something for me and that the product experience is going to do a good job of putting that in front of me. And we've seen Netflix play with this a load as well. A couple of years ago, when you watched the show, you used to be able to rate that show 1 to 5 stars. They then simplified that to simply be thumbs up, thumbs down. And that really plays into the story we're going to talk around today and the AI narrative as a whole of keeping things simple. It's all about the data you power your decisions with. So accurate data is all well and good. But at the same time, we need to make sure that our data is complete. And completeness is a really difficult one because it can often be a very moving target, whether that's talking to different stakeholders in the organization or using data for different things from reporting to reaching out to customers. And reverting there to stakeholders, they can have a completely different view on what complete means. For a Salesforce admin, I'm sure we've got many on the call here today, that might simply be on a given record, all of the required fields are populated and all validation rules are successfully complied with, right? That's a complete record from a systematic standpoint. But many sales leaders and go to market leaders, that may well not be the complete picture they need, right? They may well want very detailed discovery notes. They may well want next steps to follow up on opportunities to be up to date. And whilst you could go ahead and make something like discovery notes a required field, we know A, we're probably going to get finger bashing in there, and B, the scale of what is enough detail is very subjective, and that's something that's very hard to manage and ensure we have that complete record. But we'll return to the organizational kind of paradigm a little bit later on, but I think we can all agree that when it comes to making sure CRM data in particular is complete, end users, it can feel like a bit like pulling teeth, right? It's a very difficult task to get everyone on the same page, productive, and bought into the program. And data quality actually goes a long way to helping with that. So we have a complete record, we have an accurate record. That's all well and good, but if it's just one record, that's no good, right? We need to have consistency across the board. Another age-old struggle, right? Ensuring that data is complete across the board. And obviously there's a huge amount of different ways you can enforce this. I mentioned a few there, validation rules are shown here. The one great example that I encounter a lot when speaking with our customers and talking to the market is something like it's a very simple free text field, and that is something like billing country in Salesforce. Billing country, I'm from the United Kingdom, from England, if you couldn't tell. Accent number 2, try and keep up. It could be United Kingdom, it could be UK, it could be Great Britain, it could be GB, it could be England, it could be Scotland, it could be Wales, it could be Northern Ireland, it could be NIR. The list is really endless, right? And that from a standardization standpoint, from a reporting standpoint, is a nightmare for anyone wanting to go in and report on that data consistently, particularly if they're not aware of all of those different aspects of how you could call England and the United Kingdom a single piece in a field in Salesforce. So consistency is key. Now we're in a really good place, right? But all of our hard work so far, accuracy, completeness, consistency, that could all be wasted if we don't have unique records, because that amazing record we've just created that's accurate, complete, and consistent with our standards, it already exists in our org in a completely different area. Maybe the duplicate record that's the non-unique record in the other area of our org, maybe that's even more complete. Maybe that has even better information. Maybe that has more up-to-date and relevant information in it, right? And that means that all that great work we've just put in goes completely out the door when it comes to reporting, when it comes to end users, and particularly using AI. Having unique records is of paramount importance. And we're going to speak a little bit more about this later on when we jump into some use cases of how data quality can have a positive influence on the use of AI. What I think often goes under the radar is timeliness, making sure that data is in the right place at the right time. And a very, very relatable example here is emails, sending an email without an attachment, right? We've all been there. Everyone's been there, scrambling for the recall email button, not quite hitting it in time, and having that embarrassed reply that goes out to one or even hundreds of people saying, sorry, here's the attachment I meant to add on to the email. And this comes back again, full circle to the CRM world, right? Making sure that information is up to date, the users are interacting with correct contact information, phone numbers decay, emails decay. Just think about the turnover that we're seeing in employees across the tech industry throughout this year, right? There's a huge amount of turnover. What does that mean? All of these people that are going out of jobs and coming into jobs, their email addresses are changing. One is being removed, one is being created every single time that happens. So this is really, really important at the moment to make sure that we have correct, up-to-date, relevant information for our contacts, as well as things like product SKUs, right? So we don't have salespeople off in the corner quoting products that they're not even allowed or supposed to be able to sell. And last but not least, a little pun for us to end on. You're kind of tying in why data quality is one of the founding principles of Validity as a business. Making sure that your information is valid, right? Sticking with contact information, making sure you have correct email addresses, making sure you have correct billing information, making sure you have correct phone information, so that you have effective reach out and user buy-in when it comes to data quality. No one of these things, as we've seen throughout this, is going to solve the puzzle, but it all plays a huge part in how we think about data quality here at Validity, and how we will for the next 25 minutes or so. So you may be thinking, I've referenced it a few times in there, how does this relate to AI? Well, the same way that it has for decades for business reporting. The very simple story is, it's rubbish in, rubbish out. The level of data quality across your CRM organization or other areas of your business has a direct relationship to how and the quality of the output that you're getting, whether that is a report in Salesforce you're trying to pull based upon billing country and the example I gave earlier on, or maybe it is the output from any artificial intelligence that you are using across your organization. And we will begin to dive into those use cases, as I say, in the next few slides. But before we do that, we would love to find out a little bit more about you guys, our audience. Olivia?
Yeah, absolutely. So true to data insight, we always do 1 or 2 poll questions just because we like to know what's going on with you guys, what you're doing, and then share that information back with you. So you're going to be seeing that poll show up for you on your screen. Our behind the scenes operator is making that happen for you. So just go ahead and fill out what your current situation is with your business using AI today, or if you're not, or if you have plans to, or, just kind of where you sit there. I'm seeing stuff rolling here, guys. Let's see. What do you think is winning? I did this to Alex on our last. I made him guess. He was wrong, but any guesses?
I think businesses are a bit hesitant at the moment to see how AI evolves. I'll say overall. I think a small handful are picking and choosing, being very selective of what they're implementing, and then others are very standoffish and just observing at the moment.
Yeah, I think you're right. So what we're seeing based on our audience today is that 33% of you not using AI and don't have plans to. So Andrew, you might be right. That third of people might just be sitting there waiting to see what happens or just getting prepped. 19% said that they're going to be doing this within the next 3 months. So there's some people out there with plans to do so, probably going to Dreamforce to get some more information on how to do it successfully. In the next 6 months, we have another third. So another 33% of people are waiting for another 6 months. Because again, this isn't like a plug and play type thing. There is some prep you have to do. And 19% currently use 1 or more of the Salesforce Einstein functions. Not surprising. And then another 10% of us are using AI solutions that are not Einstein. So things outside of the Salesforce ecosystem, which I think is really interesting. I didn't have any guesses on where this would sit with people. So this is all sort of fresh information for me. And hopefully for you guys too, but just to give you an idea of what's going on there, it's spread throughout. A small percentage of us are using it. And then there's an even larger percent of us, I think, just getting our fundamentals and foundations in place to get started with it. So anyway, that was our little interlude. Segue here into the next screen. So back to you guys. I'm not sure who's next, if it's Elliot or Andrew, but either way, it'll be a dazzling.
A few more slides with this accent, and then okay. I'll get you on to the next one. So I mentioned there, now let's move on. Now we've defined data quality and seen and from a conceptual level how that impacts AI. Let's go through some examples, right, of how this impacts a wide range of stakeholders across a business and all of us as customers, right, in our day-to-day lives. One example, this has been around for a while, and we've all seen it and felt it evolve with the brands we interact with on a daily basis. That's interacting with customer service chatbots, right? There's a whole bunch of use cases as to why we may need to do this. One of the most common, particularly in the B2B world, is wanting to speak with your account representative, right? Perhaps you're working with a software company and you need to go and speak to your account rep, maybe about your upcoming renewal. Maybe you need to go and increase, some of the allotments you have with some of your products because you're loving it so much. One of the things that I think we all see when we go through this experience is we need that chatbot to know who we are, right? They need to know who we are, which customer we are, and how to interact with us. Well, most commonly, you get prompted, what is your email address? You then go ahead and type in your email address. That bot goes back to maybe the CRM or the other database of record to try and match you up with your account so they can route you to the correct account rep. That is all well and good on the condition that there are no duplicate records and the information they hold on you is correct. Duplicates in particular is really harmful here, right? Because you may well pull up if, I, Elliot Hogg, am going to speak to a brand, I provide an email address, they go away, find one in the CRM and go, yep, great. But maybe they found the lead record rather than an account record that's slightly different. Maybe the data is not of high enough quality to identify me correctly. You then perhaps get routed over to sales rather than your account manager. I think that's probably happened to all of us in our experience, right? Most of us probably receive prospecting emails from other companies that maybe we're already customers of. And all that's really frustrating customer experience, right? So there's a huge impact here. from a perspective of duplicates, particularly if we're going to speak to an individual. And moreover, it can really lead into a poor customer experience on the technical support side as well. Perhaps you are of a level of customer with a given vendor where you have dedicated support. You have, let's say, a customer success manager that helps you out on a week-to-week basis with all of the great information that you need. But perhaps instead, because again, that record is not identified correctly, you're incorrectly categorized by that chatbot, you may get thrown into the help center, right? Which may well be amazing, but you want to get straight through to your CSM. Perhaps you've just taken on a new software at a company and you don't know who that person is just yet, right? So there's a huge aspect here of how data quality can drive even the simplest of interactions with a chatbot that's just an email address. But moving through to things where it is more of a conversation with that chatbot rather than directing you elsewhere. Something like finding documentation, right? If you use the Salesforce knowledge base, for example, making sure that the latest versions of contents are published, making sure that articles are named correctly and categorized appropriately, and that approval processes are in place to ensure that only content that is ready is published. These are all things in the background that quite literally within Salesforce, working with records in Salesforce, it needs to be correct information and it needs to be managed appropriately, because without that, perhaps we're sending customers information on older versions of the product that no longer working on, or perhaps we're sending the versions of Help Center documentation for things in the product that aren't even out yet. All of this leads to a poor customer experience, which is key and really the opposite of what these chatbots are trying to intend with, right? And finally, one that we can bucket together is purchase information and order tracking, right? Making sure that if you're a new customer, maybe you're going in to track your order, whether that's using an order code, you want to have a quick experience, right? And I think a lot of the time we've seen this improve massively recently, where people are tying us back to the correct records, whether they are saying, here are your 4 orders, which one of these would you like to interact with? And you go off a correct chain from there. If there's the power in the customer, but there's a common theme here, right? Which is that relating to AI is making sure the prompts are correct, making sure that your users are put in the right position to give the correct information by surfacing the recent orders you have on their account. All of this is tied back to having that one unique source of truth for that given customer, right? No duplicates, making sure the information is complete on that record, whether that's tying orders back correctly, whether it's making sure that those email addresses and those phone numbers are verified and that contact information is correct, so that when you go and contact them, maybe they've asked for a call back from their account rep. If you don't have the phone number, that's going to be a bit of an embarrassing situation for the customer to have to chase up on. So it all ties back around to those key tenets of data quality.
Thank you, Elliot. It's a good start to it, right? Elliot's talked through the foundations of data quality and talking through a key example there being service. And the service is key, right? You want customers leaving satisfied. You want customers engaging with your company in a positive manner, not a negative manner. And as we talk about engagement further, I introduced a new accent to the group, and this one's the third one, if you're keeping count here, the Australian accent. So going through this and looking at one of the things that is key, and it's always been key, is generated email. So think content personalization, right? AI takes content personalization to the next level. And not only is the content personalized for the receiver, but it's personalized for the sender as well. And the last thing you want to do is what is happening in this picture here, right? Is addressing the person by the wrong name or addressing and aiming them with the wrong information. So if we talk about some key pillars of this and some key examples, trial follow-up is the first thing, right? You talk about a software company, you talk about even someone test driving a car, right? If Elliot here wanted to test drive a BMW that had a very luxurious leather setup, and he got a follow-up email that, although it was personalized with the way I would write the email, but it wasn't the model he was interested in, you kind of start to lose the interest of the customer, right, or the prospect at that point. But if you used AI to the fullest in this example, then you are targeting to their interests. You are targeting specifics. They are getting follow-ups. We talk about the heating in this leather seating, how good it is how great it is. It comes packaged in with your model. It comes for free. And it highlights key features of the model that Elliot was after, then you have much more of a chance of engaging and continuing that engagement with the customer. Whereas, you talk about some other things that from generated emails, you talk the flip side, support ticket replies, right? How many times has someone submitted a support ticket and just received a very generic response, right? I'm sure there are many people here that receive generic responses that say, thank you for submitting your support ticket. A rep will be with you shortly, right? You can go from that level of the spectrum to a more personalized end of the spectrum of AI has allocated that to the next available rep. And based on their skill set and the type of issue that's come in, and also has submitted a response on behalf of me, let's say that rep was me, that is tailored to the language that I use, right? And is engaging with that person, and it is making it much more educated interaction rather than a very generic one overall. Now, these can't always be positives, right? You talk about the underlying data quality here. There is a lot of negatives to it. A very good example I always like to use is my grandfather. My grandfather does not use the internet, right? But many things, as we know, require you to sign up for an account and give an email address. My grandfather has the exact same name as me. So he uses my email address, different date of birth. However, I did get an email recently asking if I was interested in retirement plans. It is the simplest of things that can change that is date of birth, right? They have that information, in particular when you talk about insurance companies and retirement plans. Yet in this case, it wasn't tailored properly. It wasn't filtered properly, right? So making sure that the data quality is up to scratch. You are not creating duplicates. You are actually filtering those records out. And there are 2 interest registers, 2 different date of births, right? Talk about nurture campaigns again, right? We talked a very simple trial follow-up, but you talk about, engagement and registering that engagement from those follow-ups, right? And then tailoring the next emails or even SMSs that follow that to those engagements. So if Elliot, for example, clicked on the heating aspect and read on the article a bit more about how the leather seats and the heating work and operate, then you can use the follow-up email to target that specific interest rather than, it just targeting a generic about the model itself. And then finally, approval requests, right? This is something that you see Salesforce introducing as well, and something that can be also introduced when it comes to any implementation of AI. Think of it as a summary of the underlying data of an opportunity. You're approving a quote, and it is asking for all the details that are there. If the underlying data of the opportunity, the information the rep has supplied is not up to date, right, or is written in shorthand that someone can't really understand except for the rep, then it's not going to be able to be consumed easily.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. And moving us on to a very key persona, I'm sure, for all of us, particularly in B2B businesses, but B2C as well, right, where we're working in direct conjunction with go-to-market teams, is sales management, right, and making the most of our CRM. In this case, obviously, Salesforce, as we look at the examples here. So one of the first areas to look at is relationship insights. Relationship insights is a really interesting part of Salesforce that I'm sure many of you use and are aware of. If you're not, absolutely recommend you go and have a look into it. Relationship insights essentially will scour both internal and external data sources of the CRM to uncover new links within relationship network. So it might be new contacts, it might be new business entity relationships. Again, we you can see how the merger and acquisitions market has always been alive, but is beginning to pick up more and more and more. Having a tie between business entities, whether it's children going into new parent companies or the other way around, there's a huge gap there, particularly across Salesforce orgs, particularly ones that have been around for a little while. Tying together business entity relationships is an absolute challenge. And it will even look for matches within your existing CRM. based upon exact matching by default by a small number of standard fields to make sure that, if it does go and find a new contact under a certain company, it's not creating a duplicate for something already within Salesforce. And it's not going to clutter up your org, right? Obviously, that's just a small number of standard fields, but it's a great place to start. And how data quality is inherently beginning to kind of be built as part of the processes that some of these more AI-based tools are being looked at by companies like Salesforce. There's a bunch of reasons why matching on a small number of standard fields isn't going to guarantee you a way to not clutter your org. And Andrew will touch on that a little bit later on. But this has seen really good success initially. AI increasing lead and appointments by more than 50% as part of this relationship insights piece. So there's a huge amount of success in here. And obviously, as part of this ecosystem, there is a legacy tool that is being retired in August. Actually, it may have just been retired, actually, which is Account Opportunity and Deal Insight. That Salesforce look to evolve this part of their ecosystem. And one piece that is not by no means something that's sold to Salesforce, and is the example here, is predictive lead scoring. It's a really interesting topic, because this is one where it's based upon, in Salesforce's case, Einstein. And Einstein operates for lead scoring two different models. There's a global model and a local model. Global being it looks across the Salesforce ecosystem and companies are like yours to build a model of what is a good lead for a contact or a lead in a technology industry, right? For example, versus a local model, which can start to begin to take in custom fields within your org and consume more information that may all be relevant to you as a company, right? If you have job title in a custom field, for example, that global model is quite simply going to miss a huge amount of the insights it may well provide you. And again, that comes back to completeness, right? And how we look at powering some of these AI models and the decisions that they make. And this model in particular, obviously it's lead scoring. It's inherently reliant upon data within fields on the lead record. And by far and away, that is an object that is probably most notorious for data quality issues, simply because of the fragmented data sources that power it, from getting a list from a trade show like Dreamforce, for example, through to an SDR who's just rushing to hit their goal at the end of the month and fills in what they need to get through rather than giving a complete record. And we can see here from this example on the screen, this got a lead score of 61. Positives, company is valid, great. The lead source is specified, so we know maybe specifically that you have attended a specific event and spoken to the company. But on the negative side, the job title is marketing manager. Maybe that's not our typical persona. We're usually selling into maybe sales operations, for example. And annual revenue is $120,000 for this particular company. Well, actually, our product sells at about $50,000 on average, for example. What are the chances that that particular customer is going to spend nearly half of their annual revenue? So for us, that's not a good lead, right? In this hypothetical example. And therefore, we need to move forward and think about ensuring that we do have a complete lead record. If we don't have that title as marketing manager and we don't have that annual revenue plugged into this lead record, maybe this scores really, really well. What does that mean? It means we're wasting time, right? We're wasting people time when we're sending out, this lead through to an account executive, maybe to invest more of our organizational resources. So the effectiveness of scoring and therefore lead routing is all tied back in to the quality of data that is powering the decisions of the models that I use, whether that's Einstein scoring or other examples, right? Bringing it all the way back to the start, making sure we have an email address that's valid on that lead, making sure that these business critical fields for us, whether that's company, lead source, title, or many others, that's part of our picture of a complete record, but also a unique record as well, right? Back to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Elliot. And finally, one other key area that you could take full advantage of AI within your business is summarizations. With all of the advancements that Salesforce is making in the AI world, these are some key things that are standing out, right? Mobile work briefing. So if you're on the go, you need a briefing before you get on a call. This is easily captured, right? And again, this goes down to the underlying data that you have, right? If you're Shorthand, if it's inconsistent, earlier touched on the good example of UK, United Kingdom, then, it won't be easily read. It won't be easily consumed or even actionable. You look at things such as opportunity status as well, summarizing where the opportunity is at, why it's in this particular status, what has occurred until this event. So any management can look at an opportunity, can generate a summary of that. Discovery call notes is very critical when we talk more about, engaging the customers. Are very, positive. If your data's all set up and everything, your discovery notes will be able to be generated, and then you could instantly send them out to whoever was attending the call. You can even instantly send it out for feedback to people within your own organization, right? This is the call. This is how it ended. This is all the notes from it. Making sure they are actionable and, making sure the underlying data is correct. That helps you get a quick response, get a quick follow-up in that case. And the other one overall is activity summaries. We think of the use case around account management. We want to understand all the activities that have happened with this account, all the events, all the emails. It's not easy to do that, right? We can all say it's not easy to go for an account, go through months worth of history, opening every single task on the activity panel on the side of an account and understand where this account is at. There are countless times where people, even myself, are spending time to understand where things are at with accounts before getting on, product discovery calls or whatever it may be, where something as simple as clicking a button could generate a briefing of that for you. Right? And that could be very advantageous for the business overall. But again, it goes back to that activity is generated and the summary is generated based on that account. If that activity is associated to the wrong account because of poor data quality, you won't have that information. You're going to be missing that, which is something the human eye can catch, right, for investigative work.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've gone through a bunch of different cross-functional use cases there, both from a customer standpoint, maybe it's from our standpoints, but also from the Salesforce admin standpoint as well. So now let's move on quickly to round us out with how do we now make the most of AI's potential, particularly for some of these that are thinking AI is 3, 6, 9, 12, maybe 24 months away. This is the time to start thinking about how you guys can get yourselves in the best position. And one of the items before we get into some tips with Andrew is just thinking about data governance. It's obviously a topic that's been around for a long, long time. It's not only relevant to AI, but successful data governance is a catalyst for successful AI adoption. There are no doubts about it, right? The first, starting us off at the top here, is stewardship. A great place to start, but this really is a revolving cycle. They're simply promoting accountability by assigning stewards or custodians to relevant data set, right? Bringing in those cross-functional stakeholders we've discussed there, making sure that sales management's eyes are the same as the Salesforce admin, so you can reach that unified vision of the output that you're going to get and the data that in reality is going to be powering, right? Finding out in your organization what data quality means to you and what is most important begins to pull together that full picture. Also, making sure that accessibility is in the right place is for sure important. Making sure the right data is available to the right people, right permission sets is a huge topic around the Salesforce ecosystem at the moment, with profiles being retired in a couple of years. Accessibility really, really important as we begin to think through the future of how data is accessible within internally and externally of the Salesforce orgs and ecosystems. Data security, obviously massively important here when we're thinking about utilizing AI solutions, particularly if they're those kind of more open source AI models that you can go and use, such as ChatGPT and others, right? As opposed to something that is more in-house or with a provider like Salesforce you're already working with, who thought through a lot of that stuff for you. Data quality, we've gone through this today. I won't beat that one any further here. But obviously, this is one piece of the picture that we've gone through today that is already very far reaching. And it's touched a bunch of those we've already spoken about today. And lastly, knowledge as well. You guys are here today. You're clearly beginning to, take this seriously, making sure you're aware of the ecosystem around you, but also preserving and improving data knowledge within your organization is really important. Making sure documentation of those data systems and related processes are all kept up to date so that people can make sure that they're aware of what's going on. And the rest of this picture is documented. It really is a catalyst for successful adoption, but that goes the other way, and it can be, put the ends to successful AI adoption before it even starts. So I'll pass it over to Andrew just to take us to the end here in the next couple of minutes with a couple of quick tips that you guys, whether you're thinking about AI or not, can take back into your day-to-day.
Thank you, mate. So the first tip, obviously, is use what you have available to you, right? So we look at what's out of the box Salesforce that is available. Things such as validation rules, screen flows, required fields, and dynamic forms. These are all very useful in ensuring consistency when it comes to capturing the data, ensuring consistency when it comes to editing data as well as completeness, right? You think about validation rules, ensuring that certain fields are filled in at a given status, whatever it may be. Dynamic forms is crucial when it comes to presenting the right information at the right time to people, right? So making sure those are all set up. I think a lot of the adoption of dynamic forms is going up as the releases go on and as Salesforce make more and more enhancements to it. It's a very popular feature, but as well as screen flows. Tip 2 is look to the App Exchange, right? Don't try and reinvent the wheel. If the out-of-the-box Salesforce isn't enough or is that first level, right, when we talk about going from crawl, walk, run kind of, tip 2 is the App Exchange, right? There are many partners such as Validity that have already gone through the thought process, spent years upon years of combining the experience to obtain products that are easily consumable by the market to help admins, to help businesses. Right? We look at things such as demand tools, which has been around for over 20 years now. We look at things as GroupBuddy Connect from a productivity point of view, Dupe Blocker, which prevents duplicates. All of us here as well on the call from Elliot, Olivia, and I know many other exchange providers such as Elements Cloud that provide you with the capabilities to go through and investigate not just data quality, but if you talk about Elements Cloud, it's metadata, right? The third one is meant to be an obvious one, but I would say sometimes forgotten, right? And that is Trailhead. So you can tell Salesforce is helping the market educate on AI. In particular, I've shared this one here, which is Get Started with Artificial Intelligence. Very useful trail. Overall, you learn a lot going through this. At the time of taking the screenshot, I hadn't completed it, but I have now completed this trail. And I've learned quite a few bits that I didn't already know when it came to AI, when it came to data models that power the AI as well. And finally, there's a lot of free things available on the market, right? There are free assessments. They give you a benchmark. They give you a starting point, such as the Demand Tools Elements Assessment, right? You get an understanding of where you are at rather than having all these unknowns and question marks surrounding it, right? How bad is my data quality? Well, put a number to it. Go and do it for free, right? This isn't something that is going to be paid for or anything like that. It is readily available to everyone.
So along with our free assessments, which you guys can go out onto the Demand Tools website and download and take a look at, like Andrew said, for yourself right now, we also have a couple of content resources for you to sum up a lot of what we talked about today, because this is good information. It's deep information. It's good to share with the rest of the team who may not be as well versed as you are in this sort of stuff. So definitely go and check those out. The Are You Ready for AI? Give some great tips, and then the dirt on data quality. It just gives you that groundwork for what do I need to look at with my data? What do I need to make sure is good or fixed, or what's most important to help me succeed as an organization. So thank you guys for that. I thought it was great. It makes a ton of sense, and I think data quality is the foundational element that you are going to be not only building your CRM on, but any digital transformation that you take on now and into the future. Next slide that we're going to show is just a little sneak peek at our theme for Dreamforce. We are very excited to go to Dreamforce this year. Like every year, Dreamforce season is probably our favorite. But we are going to give you the greatest show on earth at Dreamforce. And be sure to come by our booth. You can click that link, go to our website, find out all the different raffles and events and things that you can win and places that you can engage with us. It's a great time. If you've never been, be sure to stop by our booth because it'll start it off right. We'll be having a lot of fun, and me, Andrew, and Elliot will be there. So you'll get to see all three accents in person, which will be, I'm sure, very fun for you. All right, we have time for one question. I know we've run a little bit over, but I didn't want to stop anybody. This was really good information that I think we all need to have as we prep, not only going into Dreamforce and understanding what we're going to hear from other people about AI, but the question that I chose to answer on air today is somebody was saying, I was looking at the Einstein FAQ and it says you don't need data preparation, which I've seen that same FAQ as well. And that sort of made me tilt my head like, okay, I get what you mean, but that's not exactly the full picture. So what they're saying is, you're saying that we do need data cleanliness and data preparation. They want to know what they're missing, why Salesforce might be saying that. So Elliot, can you chime in on that before we sign off?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's an element where Salesforce can swing both ways on this one. I think if we specifically kind of address how they think about the example there, I'll actually tie it back to something that I mentioned during the presentation. So Einstein's predictive scoring, right? There's not the reason why it can be to an element and to an extent plug and play is because a lot of their AI models, they have a global model, right, that you can take advantage of. So you can score your leads based upon the broader industry and what Salesforce sees across the board. However, I mentioned earlier on, if you want to take that down to the local level where it's specifically based on your company, that's going to take a little bit more work, but you're still going to get good results right from the start. I think the element and aspect that Salesforce gloss over a little bit there when thinking about Einstein is that's all well and good, but if you're looking at fields on the record in my given org, whilst I don't need to do anything to get the results of the AI, the results that they give me are not going to be as useful as if I had a high level of data quality, right? You're always going to get results from AI, whether you give it a poor input, an average input, or a great input. So they're completely correct in saying that, right? But it's let's go and get the best quality output we can from this. If we're investing in organizational resources in going and implementing this, right, and making decisions based upon it, let's go and invest at the front and the top of the funnel as well on our data quality, making sure that those tenants we mentioned right at the start there, that they're all in a good spot, so that yes, that plug and play Einstein aspect in certain areas such as predictive scoring, the implementation can be a bit more labored in other areas of the ecosystem, but it still relies upon that input you're giving it, regardless of the fact that AI will always give you a result.
Yeah. All right, well, that is our time for today. Sorry we ran over a little bit, but thank you guys for hanging out. I see nobody really dropped off, so that's great. A true testament to you guys and the information that you're sharing that people want to hear it. So be sure to tune in next time we are on. I think we're coming back in October because we're doing some live sessions at Dreamforce. Don't forget to stop by and see those. They're quick 20-minute sessions, but again, packed with a lot of information that you can take back and execute on at your org. So thank you guys. Thank you out there, and we'll see you next time.